Hello and welcome back to Coding with Kenny G. This is the beginner series and this is an episode related to spawning enemies in our cool little mini game with our turret. So this is essentially part 2 of spawning enemies. Might be another video in that one before. Because we are doing several things here right now. So in this episode we are going to try to spawn enemies at a rate between each interval of time, and we're also going to clean up our code from the previous episode a little bit better. So let's get going. Gonna close this down and open up the turret scene. Okay, so we are working on the enemy spawner script. Okay, so this is pretty dirty. There's a lot of hard coding here, and we want to make things into functions, and we want to prepare this for being able to spawn at an interval. Okay, so I think that first of all we are going to create a spawn function. So let's just write that real quick. We can get used to making things private by default and then make them public if we need to. So I'm gonna write a private void, because we are not going to currently return anything out of this function, I don't think. Maybe later. Private void spawn enemy in single. But we are going to call this method multiple times. So what I like to do inside of such a function is to kind of take in all the parameters that are relevant. So this is a good question, where do we, inside of this function, who is responsible for sending stuff in? Is it a calling code? Let's just try to write something, and then we'll go from there. So spawn enemy. We need to spawn an enemy prefab. So we're gonna send that in as parameter. We're gonna currently write game object in capital letters, and then we're gonna write underscore enemy prefab. I do this because these variables are named the same, but they are different. So whenever we have like equal names in a class, we generally put an underscore in front of variables when they are parameters, so as a way to differentiate. Okay, so the enemy prefab we're sending in, and I think that we can just I'm just thinking out loud here, because I haven't prepared this episode fully, so I'm just have to problem solve a little bit while you're sitting here watching. So should this function kind of do all the logic for where it's supposed to be positioning? I think so. So I think that we're only just for now going to send in the prefab that we're gonna spawn. The reason why I also want to have this as parameter is that maybe later we want different types of enemies, so then we can just call this function once with some enemy, and this function will just do the job for us. So we're essentially just gonna take the code that we have in the start function here, and we're gonna cut it, Control X, and paste it into a spawn enemy function. Then in the first parameter of instantiate function, I'm just going to write underscore enemy prefab so that we're taking in the parameter variable. I don't like that this is hard-coded. We might want to make that into like a field, a variable of the class as a property. What angle range these enemies can spawn within. But let's not do that right now. Yeah, I think we're also gonna send in like the radius. In the function getPointOnCircle, we are hard coding a value of 5f, which is the radius variable that the getPointOnCircle is taking in. So I think that we're going to send that in as parameter of this function, spawn enemy. So we're going to write float underscore circle radius. I think I also want to yeah, I was just wondering if I should be more specific in the naming of this function, but should be fine. Okay, so in the instantiate function where we are for the getPointOnCircle function, where we are sending in the hard-coded value of 5f for the circle radius, we're gonna take the parameter value instead of underscore circle radius. And that should be fine for now. Now we're gonna make a public field, a variable of the class at the top of the script. So we're gonna write public float spawn radius. And then we're going to set the default value of that to equal to 5f, same as the one that we had hard-coded previously. But this will now be tweakable in Inspector and Unity so that we can modify the value more easily. And now we are going to learn a completely new thing for coding that you haven't done in this series so far. We are going to learn to use a for loop. So this is one of those syntax things that you're just gonna have to learn. A for loop. We are now gonna learn to iterate multiple times using a for loop. It's called a for loop, so it's a C# keyword. So we're just going to write for. And this is a syntax or a kind of thing that we're just going to have to practice a little bit and kind of learn. Because it's almost the same every single time, except for special circumstances. So we're going to write for, and inside opening and closing parentheses, we're going to write int I is equal to 0, end with a semicolon. Then we're going to write I is less than, right now I'm going to hard code it and then we're going to fix it afterwards. So less than 5, that is denoted by angled brackets. So less than is an angle, yeah, like this. And if it's greater than, then it will be written opposite, right? So like this, that will be greater than. This is distinctly meaning less than, not less or equal to. So if I is less than 5 and with semicolon and then I plus plus. And then we're gonna write an open and close curly brace. This syntax right here is just something that you kind of need to learn. For int I I typically, like, this is it's not formal, right? We could name this variable whatever we want. We could call it X or Y, but this is like a coding standard in a way. It stands for iterator. And here's what's going to happen when we run this code. First, this is a loop. It's going to run 5 times. The reason why is that the variable I starts at 0 and then is going to run as long as the variable I is less than 5. And then after each time it iterates, so that it reaches this ending curly brace and starts over again, then it's gonna increase the value of I by 1, denoted by this I++ operator. It means that add 1 to the variable y. So essentially, the first time the loop runs, the I will be 0, and then it's going to execute code inside of the for loop here until it reaches its closing curly brace. Then it's going to start over, and then before it starts, it's going to evaluate, hey, is I less than 5? If so, continue, right? And remember that 0 is a number. So essentially what's going to happen is that it's going to be like 1 round at index 0, then 1 round at index 1, 1 round at index 2, 1 round at index 3, and 1 round at index 4. And then it's going to break out of the loop. Yeah, so remember that 0 is a number. Okay? And I suggest that you might want to, just read up a little bit on the for loop, just to get used to the syntax of that thing, because it's same in very many different programming languages, how to iterate multiple times over a thing. So every time we are calling or running this loop, we are going to spawn an enemy. But I hard-coded the value 5 here. We want that as a variable instead. So right now, I'm just going to write public int number of enemies to spawn is equal to 5. And then I'm going to replace the hard-coded value of 5 inside of the for loop, inside of the start function, with number of enemies to spawn. This logic here is going to change later, but I really want to display to you this piece of code and this very important thing to learn called the for loop and how it works. So inside of the for loop, inside of its opening and close curly braces, I'm going to write spawn enemy, and then what are we sending in as parameter? Well, the enemy prefab, that's the variable up top here, then comma, and then we're going to send in a spawn radius. So spawn radius, and with a semicolon. The cool thing is that now every time start is run, right, we're going to get 5 enemies at different positions on the semicircle that we have defined, right? Like the random angle within a boundary, essentially in front of the turret. And then we're gonna save this script and go back to Unity. Let it compile. Cool. Now we're getting somewhere, hopefully. Hopefully this works, right? So press play. Yes. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. enemies spawned into the scene right now, and they're following the logic. But you're seeing that it's now possible to spawn an enemy inside of an enemy. There are ways to guard against such things, and this is something that we can fix and improve. Also, these guys are quite big. They're scale 1. But yeah, there are ways to solve that, but that's gonna be later. For now, we are happy that these guys are actually spawning now 5 enemies, and using our random spawn position generator. Pretty cool, huh? Just gonna stop play and press play again, and then see that we can try to tweak our variables here. Let's say I put the spawn radius closer to our well, actually the center point of the enemy spawner. So let's say 3, and then we're gonna spawn 15 enemies, and then we're gonna see a lot of them spawning inside of each other, and it's gonna look a little bit crazy like that. But yeah, so we see that our function and our program is now starting to become quite dynamic with what we can do using tweaking variables. I'm just gonna set this back to 5 on each. And let's see, is there anything else I want to cover in this episode? Yeah, I think we're happy with this episode. It's short enough. Let's see, what can we try to achieve for the next episode? I think that yes, we are going to make them spawn on an interval of time. So thank you for watching this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.